Hi Year 4, hope you had a lovely Easter. I'm going to carry on reading for you the Outlaw Varjak Poor, and we are on chapter 10. You ready, Elsa? I think she's ready. Varjak woke before dawn. It was cold and grey in the harbour. Someone was poking him in the ribs. He opened his eyes and saw Holly. Around the yard the street cats were asleep. "Come on," Holly whispered. "Enough dreaming. Time for action." She strode up the steps. Varjak and Tam followed her silently out of the yard. The harbour looked empty and desolate in the pre-dawn light. Winter wind lashed the water. Varjak felt its chill and shivered. Holly led them west, following the gang's tracks towards Sally Bones' territory. There were a few cars on the road, no people on the pavements. Old snow lay in drifts on the streets. It was hardening into slippy ice. Varjak's pads kept skidding beneath him. He had to fight to keep his balance on the treacherous ground. Treacherous means dangerous. In the distance, he could hear the howling wind. It was wordless, but it seemed to be telling him something. "Don't come here," it seemed to say. "Turn back, go away." What's that howling, he wondered. The fur on the back of his neck was prickling. "It's coming from the storm drain," said Holly, looking at the ugly concrete structure off the road. "Don't ever go there. They say wild things live in it. Right, Tam?" "Don't know," panted Tam. "Never been there, never want to." They kept away from the storm drain and followed the tracks west. They came to a crossroads on the border of Sally Bones' territory. There was a building site the side of the crossroads. The earth had been overturned, the ground was ripped open, machines with iron claws stood poised over pits dug deep in the ground. The buildings here were half demolished, their foundations exposed. A wrecking ball dangling from a crane. Ideal at this time of day. On the other side of the crossroads, great glass buildings rose from the earth, towering over the city. I can hear a dog wanting to come in, guys, hang on. Right, yeah, come on. Go down. Come here. Right, where did we get to? Varjak's awareness tingled. There was something familiar up ahead. Jade, come and like it. Jade. A natural scent, ghostly. He edged forwards, and as he reached the crossroads, he saw where it came from. A tail, a cat's tail, laid out in the gutter where people wouldn't see it, but clear as the traffic lights to any passing cat. And just along from it, mangled, filthy, but unmistakable, a pair of cat's ears, soft, furry ears. Cat's ears? Varjak stepped back a pace. His mouth had gone dry. Ears and a tail, on their own? What were they doing here, in the gutter? Didn't make sense. Varjak's own ears flattened. His tail curled up tight. To lose them, the thought was too horrid. "Oh my," said Holly. She'd just seen them. Tam shut her eyes. I warned you, but you wouldn't listen." Holly shook her fur, as if shaking out water. "It's all right," she said. "It's nothing to do with us. Let's keep going." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," came a voice from ahead. Standing in the crossroads, facing them, were two new cats. They were more like lions than cats, powerfully built with shaggy manes of fur and bushy tails. They moved a little slowly, but they were the biggest, strongest cats Varjak had ever seen. The one who'd spoken was about Razor's height, but he's incredibly stocky and broad across the chest. The other one was even larger. "I said I wouldn't do that, repeated the stocky one. His paws were blunt and dusty. Do you know whose territory this is? Of course we do, said Holly, backing away from the crossroads. So what are you doing here? The stocky one said. Can't you see what's in the gutter? Varjak glanced at the ears and tail again. His heart sank. Holly didn't seem to know these cats. Were they from Sally Bones' gang? They sounded like it, and their faces were scarred like razors. We're just going, said Holly. Oh, no, you're not. The two cats strode forward, rugged manes bristling. Varjak, Holly and Tam backed away towards a half-demolished building on the side between them. We're looking for an outlaw, the stocky one. A silver-blue cat called Varjak Paw who fights like Sally Bones. Is that you? He squinted slowly at Varjak. Him? Laughed Holly. That's a good one. He's just a pet who's gotten lost. Aren't you, Snowflake? That's right, said Varjak. Sharp as ever. Holly had seen these cats. Could be bluffed. His only chance was to play along. I'm Snowflake, and I'm lost. I'm looking for my home. Can you help me? He smiled sweetly, but his pulse was racing. The stocky cats scratched their heads. He's a funny-looking thing, isn't he? I thought Varjak would be bigger. Didn't you, Ozzy? Yep, the ginger cat, speaking at last. I didn't think he'd be the one we're after, but go on, see what he's made of. Might as well. Ozzy beamed. Okay, Omar, thanks. Varjak braced himself as Ozzy squared up to the fight. This was a test. If he used the way, they'd know who he was. And that would be that. He had to face Ozzy without it. And without his friends. Holly and Tam couldn't help him anymore because Omar was keeping them in check. There's no need for this, growled Holly. We don't want to fight. No one wants to fight Ozzy, crowed Omar. But you've got no choice. Ozzy came barreling through the air. Varjak rolled aside just in time. But the giant cat caught his flank as he went. A glancing blow, powerful enough to knock him over. Varjak came up into a crouch, defending his flank as he got his breath back. How could he beat a cat like this without using his skill? Even with them he'd struggle against an opponent so immensely big and strong. Ozzy marched forward, legs thick like lampposts. Varjak backed up into the building site. The ground was strewn with rubble. With 3 steps he was up against the wall, and Ozzy was still coming. A huge paw shot out. Varjak ducked. Ozzy hit the wall above him. A cloud of dust rose where Varjak's head had been. He had to get away. A hit like that could kill him. He feigned left, right, but wherever he turned, Ozzy was still in the way. The giant cat grinned, lifting Varjak clean off his paws and sent him crashing into the wall. Varjak twisted in mid-air, but couldn't avoid the impact. His bones jarred, his visions blurred. Above him he saw the crane, the wrecking ball, the broken buildings. Ozzy was squaring up to finish him off. You better run, whooped Omar. It's your only chance. Varjak staggered to his paws, heart pounding, out of breath. He wanted to run desperately, but he knew Ozzy would only catch him. It's useless trying to fight, he thought. I can't beat this cat for power. But if I could somehow use his own power against him. He held himself still in front of the wall. His heart was thumping like a jackhammer, but he stood his ground and beckoned to Ozzy. Is that what you can do? He said. I thought you were supposed to be strong. Ozzy looked startled for a second. Then he pulled the ground and charged at Varjak with maximum force. Varjak stood there, totally still, to the last possible moment. And then he dived under the charge. Crunch! The giant crashed headfirst into the wall. Varjak sprang away, breathing hard. The fight was surely finished. He turned to look at Ozzy, but Ozzy was just dusting himself off. "Yoo-hoo!" yelled Omar. "You can't hurt Oz! He can't feel a thing!" Ozzy grinned, a gap-toothed grin. He looked like he was having fun. "Oh, but he's good, Omar. He's brave. I think he's the one. Can I find some more, please?" "No, that's enough, little brother," said Omar, suddenly very serious. He turned to Varjak. "I only saw one cat who didn't run away from Ozzy before, and that was Sally Bones. So you must be Varjak Paw. And those stories must be true." With those words they bowed down before Varjak. So did Ozzy. They flattened themselves to the rubble. "At your service," they said together. Omar and Ozzy, the horrible twins, the strongest cats in town. Varjak stared at them in disbelief. Holly and Tam were staring too. "You're not in Sally Bones' gang, are you?" said Holly. "You're outlaws. I remember now. Luger said they were looking for twin cats, one big, one bigger." "Outlaws and proud of it," said Omar, standing up again. "Outlaws," breathed Tam. She groomed her bushy tail. "We're outlaws too." "We weren't always," said Omar. "We were in Ginger's gang in the old days, before Sally Bones. Then she made us join her gang. It was a nightmare. She used to slash us, just to prove she was boss. We're stronger than her, but she's the only one who has the secrets way of fighting." Ozzy flinched. The scars on his face quivered. "Don't say it, Omar. I don't want to remember. Anyway, we got away from her. And now we've met the cat who's going to put the city right. Snowflake." He looked at Varjak and grinned his gap-toothed grin. "You're not really called Snowflake, are you?" Varjak couldn't help grinning back. No, I'm not," he said. "You're right. I'm Varjak." "So, why were you really going into her territory?" said Omar. "A patrol took a friend of ours away last night," said Holly. "A kitten." Omar glanced at the ears and tail in the gutter. "Your friend needs help." "What do you know at his ears?" said Varjak. "You don't know?" said Omar. "Don't say it," said Holly. "It's too horrible." "That's why it needs to be said." Omar closed his big, blunt paws. "Because that is Sally Bones' mark. That's the punishment for breaking the law. She rips your ears off and tail off and leaves them for everyone to see." "What? She can't do that." Varjak looked at Holly, hoping she'd say Omar was wrong and some kind of mistake. But she didn't. "You remember that animal we saw outside the secret alley? That was a cat with no wheels and no tail." Varjak's mind started to spin. So now he knew why Tam was so scared, and why the street cats in the yard went silent when he mentioned it. "Nobody stops her," he whispered. "Nobody can," said Omar. "And if you don't act fast, this is what will happen to your friend." Varjak's face burned. This was outrageous. The most outrageous thing he'd ever heard. He turned away. Everyone was looking at him. He could feel it, and he could feel his own power rising inside him like a flame. "No," he said, standing in the crossroads. "It's not going to happen to Jess." And that's the end of our chapter. Read some more tomorrow. Have a good day, guys.